Imagine you're driving down a deserted road, miles from anywhere. It's late and rain is pouring down. Then, up ahead, you see a lone figure walking on the shoulder, completely drenched. Every sensible part of your brain is screaming at you to just keep driving. But you don't. You pull over. They get in, and after a few silent, tense miles, you glance over and they're just gone. What would you even do? Tonight, we're not talking about hypotheticals. We're sharing the most chilling, real-feeling accounts from drivers who didn't have to imagine this scenario, because it actually happened to them. Our first story takes us to a place that's practically ground zero for this kind of legend, a place where one name has been whispered by travelers for almost a century: Mary. For Liam, a 24-year-old paralegal working late in Chicago, the legend of Resurrection Mary was just that, a spooky story. He'd heard the tales about a young woman in a white dress who haunted Archer Avenue, always vanishing somewhere near Resurrection Cemetery. They were just stories. Until one rainy October night, they weren't. He was dead tired. A case had kept him at the office past midnight, and all he wanted was his bed. As the city lights vanished behind him, he turned onto the long, dark stretch of Archer Avenue. The rain was drumming a hypnotic rhythm on the roof. The road was slick, reflecting the lonely glow of streetlights in distorted, shimmering pools. And that's when his headlights caught something. A figure on the shoulder looking frail against the downpour. It was a young woman. She was wearing a simple, light-colored dress that was totally wrong for the weather, soaked through and clinging to her. No jacket, no umbrella. She didn't even look up as his car got closer. Liam's mind was racing. He knew how this looked. It was late. The road was empty. Every horror movie trope told him to hit the gas. But a stronger feeling, a deep sense of pity, won out. He couldn't just leave her. He pulled over, the tires crunching on the gravel, the sound echoing in the quiet night. He leaned across the car and pushed the passenger door open. "Hey, need a ride? This is no night to be out walking." The woman stopped and slowly turned. In the dim light from the dashboard, he saw she was young, maybe his age, with pale skin and huge, sorrowful eyes. Her blonde hair was plastered to her face. Without a word, she just nodded and slid into the passenger seat. She brought a wave of damp, cold air with her, a chill that felt like it went deeper than just the rain, a cold that seemed to come from inside her. "So, where you headed?" Liam asked, trying to sound casual as he pulled back onto the road. Her voice was a whisper so soft and strange he could barely hear it. "Just up the road, past the cemetery." He nodded, a knot of dread tightening in his gut. Resurrection Cemetery, of all places. He risked a quick look at her. She was just staring out the window, watching the rain-streaked trees fly past. Her hands were clasped in her lap, and he couldn't help but notice how deathly pale they were. "Rough night?" he tried, desperate to break the suffocating silence. She turned to him, and her blue eyes seemed to look right through him. "I just want to go home," she said. Her voice was so full of sadness it made his own chest ache. As she spoke, the radio, which had been playing softly, crackled with static and then died completely. They drove on in silence. The only sounds were the swish-swish of the wipers and the hum of the engine. Liam could feel the tension building with every mile. He had this overwhelming urge to look at her again, just to make sure she was real, but he kept his eyes glued to the road. The feeling of being watched, of sharing his car with something impossibly old and sad, was becoming unbearable. Finally, the iron gates of Resurrection Cemetery appeared, their spires like skeletal fingers pointing at the storm. As they pulled level with the entrance, she spoke again, her voice even quieter this time. "Here is fine." Liam took his foot off the gas, about to say he could take her to an actual house, that it was no trouble at all. But the words caught in his throat. The passenger seat was empty. His heart hammered his ribs. He just stared. The seatbelt was still buckled, pulled tight across the empty space where she had been sitting a second ago. A damp spot stained the fabric, and the air was still thick with that unnatural, penetrating cold. He hadn't heard a door, hadn't felt the car shift. She had simply stopped being there. He slammed on the brakes, his car skidding to a halt in the middle of the road. He threw his door open and yelled out into the rain, but there was no one. There was nothing. Just the wind and the weeping sky. The legend was real. He'd just given a ride to Chicago's most famous ghost. Liam's story is a classic, an echo of a legend that has haunted Chicago for generations. But these things don't just happen on one road. They happen on lonely highways all over the country, where the miles blur together and the line between our world and something else gets thin. And sometimes the passenger isn't just a lost soul. Sometimes they bring a message. Sal had been driving rigs for 30 years. He knew the highways of the American Southwest like the back of his hand. He'd seen it all: freak weather, bizarre accidents, the strange mirages that dance on the hot asphalt. But nothing could have prepared him for the night he was hauling machine parts east on I-40, deep in the Arizona desert. It was 3 a.m. The world outside his cab was a black void, cut only by the two beams of his headlights. It's a hypnotic, lonely job. He was chugging stale coffee, fighting off sleep with the constant drone of the engine. And that's when he saw him. A silhouette on the shoulder, holding a walking stick. An old man, miles from the nearest town, miles from anything. Company policy was strict. No riders, period. But something about the sight, the sheer impossibility of it, made Sal slow that massive truck to a groaning halt. He told himself he couldn't just leave an old man stranded out here in the middle of nowhere. The man opened the tall cab door with surprising ease and settled into the passenger seat. He brought the smell of dry dust and distant rain with him, like an approaching desert storm. His face was a road map of deep wrinkles, and his eyes were dark and piercing. "Where to?" Sal asked, his voice gruff. The old man didn't give a place. He just pointed eastward with a bony finger. That way. For a time. It was a weird answer, but Sal was too tired to argue. They rode in a heavy silence for what felt like an hour. Sal was starting to really regret this. The man's quiet intensity was seriously putting him on edge. Then the passenger spoke, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. He pointed ahead, toward an overpass that was just a smudge on the horizon. "There's a fire waiting in the steel up there," he said, his tone flat, like he was stating a fact. "A darkness." Sal frowned. "What in the hell are you talking about?" The man ignored him. His eyes fell to the dashboard, to a worn photo of Sal's wife and two kids taped there. A small, sad smile touched his lips. "A good family. You'll see them again. But you have to listen to the desert tonight. When you see the twin coyotes, you stop the truck. You stop, no matter what." Before Sal could demand what that meant, the man fell silent again, his gaze fixed on the endless road. A shiver went down Sal's spine. The whole thing felt like a dream, like something his tired mind had cooked up, He wanted to tell the man to knock it off with the cryptic nonsense, but when he turned his head to say so, his breath caught in his throat. He was alone. The passenger seat was empty. The door was still locked from the inside. The only thing the old man left behind was that lingering scent of dust and rain. Sal's mind was reeling. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. A hallucination. It had to be. He was overtired, that's all. He tried to shake it off, to focus on the job, on getting to Phoenix, but the man's words kept echoing in his head. When you see the twin coyotes, you stop. Another hour went by. The sun would be coming up soon. He was getting close to the overpass the old man had pointed to. Sal was so focused on the road ahead, he almost missed them. 2 little pinpricks of light at the very edge of his high beams. He slowed down, and the lights resolved into the shapes of 2 coyotes, standing side by side on the shoulder, their eyes glowing back at him. The old man's warning screamed in his mind, "Stop the truck." Every professional instinct, 30 years of experience, told him to keep going. You don't stop a 40-ton rig on the interstate for a couple of animals. It was insane. But the eerie reality of his vanished passenger, the absolute certainty in that strange voice, it was more powerful than logic. Sal slammed on the brakes. The truck screamed with the sound of tortured metal, the trailer fishtailing before jackknifing and finally shuddering to a halt just 100 yards shy of the overpass. His heart was pounding. The cab smelled of burnt rubber. For a second, there was just silence. He'd just risked his life and his career on the words of what had to be a ghost. And then the world exploded. On the far side of the overpass, a tanker truck he hadn't even seen lost control and smashed directly into the concrete support pillars. The bridge shuddered, and the tanker erupted in a massive fireball that lit up the desert night like a second sun. It happened right in the spot where his rig would have been. He'd gotten a prophecy from a phantom, a warning that had just saved his life. So a ghost can be a warning, a guardian angel. But not all of these roadside spirits are so helpful. As the legend evolves, it gets darker. Our final story comes from the winding back roads of the Pacific Northwest, and it's a terrifying reminder that when you pick up a stranger, you never know what you're really letting into your car, or into your life. Maya was a software engineering student. She was a person of logic and code, who believed in systems and rules. To her, the paranormal was just a bug in human perception. Her new electric car was a perfect reflection of her beliefs, a marvel of technology with a sophisticated GPS, driver assist features, and a giant touchscreen that controlled everything. It was that feeling of technological safety that convinced her to pull over. She was driving home for winter break, through the dense, rainy forests of coastal Oregon. The road was a twisting ribbon of wet asphalt between ancient trees. She saw a figure up ahead in a dark, hooded sweatshirt, standing on the shoulder, totally soaked. He didn't have his thumb out. He just stood there, waiting. In her old car, she would have sped past, but in her smart car with its GPS tracking and emergency call button, she felt safe. So she pulled over. He opened the door and slid in without a word. An immediate, unnatural cold filled the car, fogging the inside of the windows. He pulled his hood back just enough that she could see his face was lost in deep shadow. "Where are you headed?" Maya asked, a nervousness she wasn't expecting creeping into her voice. The man just grunted and pointed down the road. Maya shrugged and started to drive. And that's when things got weird. The car's huge touchscreen, its central brain, started to glitch. The map flickered. Then, the GPS voice spoke, but it sounded Wrong. Distorted. Rerouting, it said. Turn right onto North Ridge Logging Road. Maya frowned. That wasn't right. That was an unpaved service road. Cancel route, she commanded. Nothing. The system didn't respond. The turn was coming up fast. She tried to override it, but the screen was frozen on the new, wrong map. From the passenger seat, the man let out a low chuckle. A dry, rasping sound that made the hairs on Maya's arms stand up. Panicked, she ignored the turn and stayed on the main highway. System error, the car announced, its voice now glitching badly. Recalibrating, please make a U-turn. Suddenly, the car's own lane assist feature jerked the wheel, trying to pull her into the turn lane. She had to fight her own car to stay on the road. What is happening? She yelled, looking over at her passenger. In the shadows of his hood, she could see a faint, unnerving smile. The radio, which had been off, burst to life, blasting through channels, not music, just piercing static and chopped-up, distorted voices. The interior dome light started flickering on and off like a dying heartbeat. The car felt like it was possessed. Then, just as they passed a sign that read "Dead End," everything went black. The engine cut out. The dashboard, the screen, the headlights, all of it died. They were plunged into absolute darkness and a silence so deep it rang in her ears. Stranded in a dead car, deep in the forest. Maya's hands trembled as she fumbled for her phone. She found it and clicked on the flashlight. The beam cut a sharp, terrifying cone through the dark. She aimed it at the passenger seat. It was empty. He was gone. But she could still see an indentation in the leather seat, as if someone had just been sitting there. And that bone-deep cold was still there, more intense than ever. Maya scrambled out of the car, her phone's light dancing frantically across the trees. Nobody. A moment later, the car roared back to life behind her. Headlights blazed, the engine hummed, and the radio started playing a pop song like nothing had ever happened. Trembling, Maya got back in. The GPS was back to her original route. Everything was normal. Except, on the touchscreen in the car's system diagnostic log, there was a single new entry. It was time-stamped to the exact moment of the blackout. It read, "External entity detected. System integrity compromised. Purge complete." Maya drove until she hit the bright lights of the next town. She took the car to the dealership later, but the mechanics found nothing wrong. They couldn't explain the system failure, and they'd never seen a diagnostic message like that. It wasn't in their manuals. Maya was left with the terrifying certainty that her passenger wasn't just a ghost. It was a glitch in reality, a phantom in the machine. From a girl replaying her final moments in Chicago, to a prophet in the desert, to something that can hack our modern tech, the legend of the Vanishing Hitchhiker is still very much alive. Skeptics will say it's all just the power of suggestion, the hypnotic effect of a long drive or tricks played by a tired mind, and maybe they're right. But for the drivers who glance over at an empty passenger seat, who are saved from a fiery crash by a phantom's warning, or who find an impossible message on their car's computer, the experience is all too real. It leaves them with a question we'll leave with you. What if some spirits are still just trying to get home? And what if, on some dark and lonely night, you're the one they ask for a ride? Have you ever had an experience like this? A moment on a dark road that you just can't explain? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more unsettling true stories, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next.